we will look at commands, arguments, and entry points in Docker. Let's start with a simple scenario. Say you were to run a Docker container from an Ubuntu image. When you run the docker run Ubuntu command, it runs an instance of Ubuntu image and exits immediately. If you were to list the running containers, you wouldn't see the container running. If you list all containers including those that are stopped, you will see that the new container you ran is in an exited state. Now, why is that? Unlike virtual machines, containers are not meant to host an operating system. Containers are meant to run a specific task or process, such as to host an instance of a web server or application server or a database, or simply to carry out some kind of computation or analysis. Once the task is complete, the container exits. A container only lives as long as the process inside it is alive. If the web service inside the container is stopped or crashes, the container exits. So who defines what process is run within the container? If you look at the Docker file for popular Docker images like nginx, you will see an instruction called cmd, which stands for command, that defines the program that will be run within the container when it starts. For the nginx image, it is the nginx command. For the MySQL image, it is the mysqld command. What we tried to do earlier was to run a container with a plain Ubuntu operating system. Let us look at the Docker file for this image. You will see that it uses bash as the default command. Now, bash is not really a process like a web server or database server. It is a shell that listens for inputs from a terminal. If it cannot find a terminal, it exits. When we ran the Ubuntu container earlier, Docker created a container from the Ubuntu image and launched the bash program. By default, Docker does not attach a terminal to a container when it is run, and so the bash program does not find a terminal, and so it exits. Since the process that was started when the container was created finished, the container exits as well. So how do you specify a different command to start the container? One option is to append a command to the docker run command, and that way it overrides the default command specified within the image. In this case, I run the docker run Ubuntu command with the sleep5 command as the added option. This way, when the container starts, it runs the sleep program, waits for 5 seconds, and then exits. But how do you make that change permanent? Say you want the image to always run the sleep command when it starts. You would then create your own image from the base Ubuntu image and specify a new command. There are different ways of specifying the command. Either the command simply as is in a shell form or in a JSON array format like this. But remember, when you specify in a JSON array format, the first element in the array should be the executable. In this case, the sleep program. Do not specify the command and parameters together like this. The command and its parameters should be separate elements in the list. So I now build my new image using the docker build command and name it as Ubuntu Sleeper. I could now simply run the docker Ubuntu Sleeper command and get the same results. It always sleeps for 5 seconds and exits. But what if I wish to change the number of seconds it sleeps? Currently, it is hard-coded to 5 seconds. As we learned before, one option is to run the docker run command with the new command appended to it. In this case, sleep10. And so the command that will be run at startup will be sleep10. But it doesn't look very good. The name of the image, Ubuntu Sleeper, in itself implies that the container will sleep. So we shouldn't have to specify the sleep command again. Instead, we would like it to be something like this. Docker run Ubuntu Sleeper 10. We only want to pass in the number of seconds the container should sleep, and the sleep command should be invoked automatically.